Hello, my name is Mordred Viking, and I'd like to welcome you to this stream of Hearts of Iron 4. This is the Kaiserreich Weekly tournament, and the Weltkrieg Second Weltkrieg is well and truly on. At the end of last session, we had the massive naval invasion of the Union of Britain, which Britain, alongside its allies, and particularly its allies, did manage to repulse. We then had France coming in and smashing up Belgium, which is why Flanders-Wallonia is currently under French control, but since then the Frontline has managed to stabilise. Meanwhile, in America, we had the absolutely tumultuous American Civil War, which they've only really just managed to come out of. It came incredibly close to an AUS victory, and then it came incredibly close to a PSA victory, but a last-minute encirclement of fully half of the PSA's forces in Michigan did manage to get the United States of America into a victory, though it was actually very close and could really have gone any way, except probably the CSA, who were a bit bullied at the beginning. Meanwhile, in China, we have got China now fully reformed by Fentiang. We did see an early upset where the Nanjing clique, formerly known as the League of Eight Provinces, managed to survive and defeated the left KMT and Anqing clique. But then Fentiang attacked Qing. Qing got no volunteers from anybody. Then once they had Qing, they just went straight for Fentian and then went straight for League of Eight Provinces, and at that point it was basically over for China, and they just continued consolidating everything. India's fought a pretty good series of wars against Afghanistan, which they fully annexed, Princely Federation, and then the various minor princes who split out, and then eventually Bharatiya and Burma and Nepal. So this is a pretty strong, pretty consolidated India that we are seeing here. Spain avoided the civil war. They did have a couple of hiccups where they became the Kingdom of Spain and then switched over to the CNTFEI. In the interim, the admins have basically taken a bunch of their focuses for them, so they actually got a couple of these factories built up for them, which is what these are. And they're now working on other stuff, and I think they have now joined the Third Internationale. Meanwhile, Sweden also had some really big issues with their focuses, which have also apparently been ironed out by the admins between sessions. There has apparently been a focus added to let them join the Reichspakt early, but I'm not seeing where that is right now. Okay, we're having a hot join. I'm guessing that this is going to be Austria coming back in, which is probably why we didn't unpause between stuffs. What else do I need to cover? We had the Berber uprising in the Kingdom of France, which... oh dear, no, don't go there. Go to... where's Bhutan? There. Yeah, I can't type. Kingdom of France had the Berber uprising, where volunteers from many different nations, especially from the Ukraine and from Sweden, managed to cause a bit of an upset against the Kingdom of France and basically stopped them retaking their territories, actually for an extended period of time, which prevented France from sending any volunteers out to anyone else. And that probably did do a little bit to delay the American Civil War. We had the Indo-Chinese rising up against German East Asia and finishing off a very clinical war against them, where they annihilated basically the entirety of German East Asia's army. So GEA is going to have some very serious manpower issues going forwards. They have since managed to rebuild the majority of their forces, but they are going to be feeling that one for a while. Argentina did manage to take out the rest of Brazil, so this mess over here is like an entirely Third Internationale Brazil. I don't think they've joined... oh, Mexico's in. That I'd missed. So Chile has all of these guys as puppets, I believe. It was Chile who had Patagonia. Oh no, they're independent now. And then we have these guys who are Argentinian puppets. And if Argentina joins the Third Internationale, which I think they will because the Workers' Front did win that civil war, then they'll probably join. So actually a lot of South America right now is Third Internationale. Also, they have taken out Morocco and are posing another big threat to the Entente. So I'm wondering if the war between the Reichspakt and France becomes a bit of a stalemate, if the Third Internationale is going to go for the Entente. because they definitely have a couple of openings where they would be able to do that. The problem for them is the ever ubiquitous fuel shortage that Britain is suffering. They are receiving fuel from others, or they were. I don't think that's still true. No, I don't think they're getting any. No, I don't think they're being lend-lease anymore by the Entente. So if they're having problems, France is fine. Germany has since solved their issues, but Britain not having fuel is a big frickin' problem. They do still have 260 convoys, so we were a bit concerned yesterday about their complete convoy shortage, particularly because Germany was undertaking a heavy submarine strategy. Unfortunately for Germany, most of their submarines are now dead. So somebody did manage to... Yeah, it's Helmet Guy that was having all the problems yesterday. Germany was caught out by something and their submarines destroyed, but I'm not entirely sure by whom. France has still got a bunch and could do some damage, and I think... Unfortunately, you can't switch between countries in the naval map mode. It's very annoying. Yeah. Union of Britain has their submarine still, so it's just the Reichspakt that doesn't. So what is Germany's naval plan going forwards? How are they going to maintain the blockade of Britain? Because I don't think they can. They still have their very large strike fleet. That's true, which is currently in repairs, but soon to be finished. And then they'll be able to take to the seas again. So I'm expecting some more conflicts between them. Did we get an explanation for Canada not building any factories? So apparently the USA player and the Canadian player did not show up, so both of these were substitutes who had not really had much practice as those nations. That was more of an issue for the USA, though, having spoken to India, than for Canada. So I don't know why Canada didn't. That one's a bit of a mystery. The fact that the USA had such a torrid beginning was apparently because of inexperience. And the way that he did manage to turn it around, especially with the pocketing of the Michigan pocket, he's risen up in my estimation since then. But that beginning was really, really quite poor, and it was a struggle to recover from that. And it was really because of the 10,000 guns that they received from the Australasian Confederation, which allowed them to stay in the fight at all, really. Those are Chilean submarines being sunk by German air. So maybe it was actually naval bombers. Does Britain have naval bombers out? They do. 373. So maybe it was Germany's naval bombers in the English Channel taking out the German submarines. And again, submarines in general in the English Channel are a very bad idea because of that 100% extra visibility if they're in a shallow sea. Like submarines placed in the North Sea, also a problem. Submarines placed in the Western Approaches, fine, it's an ocean. But the North Sea and the English Channel are very bad submarine locations. So if you're actually trying to do a blockade of Britain, it's better to go Bay of Biscay, Western Approaches, and Norwegian Sea, rather than trying to surround them completely. A, because land-based aircraft will hunt you down and kill you, and B, because of the visibility issues in those two. That can also make it difficult to blockade with submarines the Germans, and the Germans can try to escape through the Norwegian Sea up here, because this is fjords and archipelagos, which is actually better territory for submarines, but also other ships, and then the Eastern North Sea is shallow. Are we waiting for Austria again? I would assume that we are. Not building factories isn't a familiarity with nations issue, though. Yeah, which is why I said I don't think that was the problem. Not knowing, like, build orders or focus orders is... That one is. I'm just going to bring up Kaiserreich Weekly on my phone so I can keep a bit easier tabs on messages as they get sent through. Thus far, though, no issue. Okay, so this seems to be Austria coming in again. I don't know if it's going to be the same player, or if they're going to bring in a substitute again. Because this is going to be a constant drain on their tickets. Okay, so we've got Petit Pampan, who I do believe was the Austrian substitute yesterday. So they have indeed elected to bring in a substitute. And then I crashed. Observer problems. Alright, so we have a lot of submarine action going on in the Mediterranean at the moment. Potentially trying to deny North Africa. So we saw that the German submarines are currently in the Mediterranean. We've also seen that the French submarines are in the Mediterranean, and I think possibly the British ones too. No, the British ones are currently in port. Not actually that surprised by this. And British convoys are being sunk here. Now, here's a question. Because there are that many submarines active in the Mediterranean right now, is anybody doing escort duty? Like, this is something that I'm consistently failing to see in multiplayer. Okay, Italy is actually doing escort. That's good. So we have an escort fleet currently protecting the Western Mediterranean and the Tyrrhenian Sea. However, the Central Mediterranean and the Eastern Mediterranean completely untouched, as is the Adriatic. And we are obviously seeing naval engagements going on there. Oh! That's a lot of convoys that Britain's about to lose. Because the Austrian surface fleet has caught them. 17, 18, 19, 20. This is why, and I'm pleased to see that Italy is doing this, you block off regions of the sea. I had not actually factored in that Austria's actually got a pretty solid surface fleet. It's not one you would want to use for power projection, for just protecting the Adriatic. That's a lot of capital ships. They do need to get a slightly better escort, but 43 convoys sunk so far. 43, 44, 46, 47. That was 50 convoys have just been sunk by the Austrians in the Adriatic. 50. That's a few. So what I was talking about there is this hashing. You can use these buttons on the side of the seas. So if you click on, say, the Eastern Mediterranean, you can then click on this button here, and you can say yellow, which is ships can pass through but convoys cannot, or red, nobody may pass through, I think, except for submarines. And that is how you can basically block your convoys from doing silly things like sailing in the Adriatic. And the British are being caught again. I don't know why there are quite this many convoys there. Used for trade and supply. They're probably getting a lend-lease from Italy. Yeah. Lend-lease is sending Britain convoys because Britain keeps on losing their convoys here in the Adriatic. Meanwhile, Austria is attacking into Italy. This is a bit of an exposed province. It is mountains, so they should be able to defend that. Meanwhile, the co-prosperity sphere just attacked into Saudi Arabia, was it? Yes. And Reichspakt is also at war with Saudi. So both sides are obviously trying to gobble up some of the territory here in the Middle East and then start to threaten Suez. So it's going to be an interesting race between the Reichspakt, primarily Bulgaria, and then the entirety of the co-prosperity. Can't help but feel that Russia and Prosperity Sphere may be a little overpowered, mostly with them having all of China. I don't disagree. It's a difficult balance. Like, I was actually talking to the admins straight after the China update about potential movements in terms of allegiances. The problem is, in Kaiserreich at the moment, just through default focuses, Russia is most likely to join co-prosperity. Their focuses are designed for that. So that, I think, is an overall balance issue with Kaiserreich. I think Russia needs to be more of a wild card again, where they could join any faction. Although how that exactly would work in a multiplayer, I don't know. Probably just leave Russia, frankly, as a neutral. And let people fight over them through boost ideologies, civil wars. Please give Russia civil wars. In fact, yeah, Russian civil war, same as the American Civil War. Let people fight over it. Don't just have them swing wildly to one side and join them. Is Britain blocking sea zones as well? No. Oh, no, now they are. North Sea, English Channel, and Central Mediterranean, and now Adriatic has been blocked. Okay, so they've started to do that, which is wise. Because right now, the escorts are rather overwhelmed, and I am seeing that they are trying to do some convoy escorts. The question is, with what? 3 destroyers ain't going to cut it. Britain needs to be having a lot more of these. Are they actually built for anti-submarine warfare? They do not have sonar, they don't even have depth charges. So, no, they're not built for that. They're not going to do anything, really. I mean, they'll screen the convoys, and if they are quick enough in getting in that position, they will successfully block them from being hit by submarine torpedoes, but they won't actually sink any submarines. They can't. They have no anti-submarine warfare. They can't even detect them. And what about Italy? Italy does seem to be the protection controller, the escort controller. So let's take a look at the tier 2 ones. They've got anti-sub, no sonar. See, one of the first things I do in any game where I am playing as the naval power... In fact, I'm going to click on somebody who is not Italy so we can see this. Greece. The first thing I do is research anti-submarine warfare. So I would get to at least 1936 version of the depth charge thrower and at least passive sonar. And we can actually see that Greece has already got active sonar. That's really good. Like, ultimately, you really want active sonar and depth charge mortars if you can get it. Kaiserreich does make these later, which I think is a good change, because by 1936 in vanilla you can get all of these modules, as well as tier 2 destroyers, and that is kind of overpowered. Russia can no longer join Co-Pro and base Kaiserreich. Pretty sure they can. Feel like the previous civil war with Siberia secedes took too long. No longer than the American Civil War or the Chinese Civil War. Russian Civil War is rarer now, I prefer it. I don't. I always really enjoyed the Communist Uprising because it at least slowed Russia down. So you knew that they were more of a mid to late game power than an early game power where they're just coming in with the full might of the Russian bear. Like, at least in vanilla they have to deal with the purge. In this, they don't even have that. Those heavy torpedo destroyers are only effective against badly screened fleets, right? Yes. So they would probably do some damage to the Austrians, who had a 78% screen. But against somebody with more destroyers, be a lot less effective. Because the chance of a torpedo hitting a ship is entirely based on the screen. So if the screen has a 50% screening efficiency, then torpedoes have a 50% chance of hitting. If you have a 70% screening efficiency, you have a 30% chance of hitting with a torpedo. If you have a 100% screen, torpedoes can't hit you. They're pointless. Saw sonar on the British ships. Those weren't sonar, those were radar, not radar. Fire support. Fire engines, fire shooting. Fire control. Oh, they do have sonar. They just put it in the wrong slot. You really want the sonar here. So you can go sonar, radar. Otherwise you got fire control, sonar. I think that's a mistake, because destroyers aren't really your damage dealers. They're your screens. They're your protectors. Your damage dealers are the capital ships. Okay, so Italy is trying to attack into Austria, but this is just such a difficult place to be fighting over. This is just infantry versus infantry. It's never really going to achieve very much. The other interesting question would be Air Force. So the Royal Air Force right now is hitting very heavily into southern Germany. They do have pretty overwhelming air superiority right now. In terms of just aircraft, they are losing a lot more aircraft though. 6-1. Come on, next day. 6-6. Although Germany is also losing close air support. 3-7. Okay, that was a better round. 3-12. Okay, now they've turned things around a bit. And they've got green air. 5-14. Okay, apparently I just looked at this at the wrong time. 3-19. Yeah, they're crushing Germany in the sky. Which I know was Britain's intention. They wanted to get complete air domination. Meanwhile, we have a French attack being led by those mighty tank divisions attacking into Germany right now. Germany does have 17 divisions guarding this. They are pretty well defended. They are pretty well entrenched. But these French attacks are just so strong. Like, they're really heavily armoured. And it is now 1940. I can have a look at those templates, and I feel like I want to. The boys. They have got 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 medium tanks, 11 medium tanks, medium tank destroyer, 2 medium AA, which is an interesting choice, especially because they know that Britain was going to go so heavy fighter superiority. And then motorized. They do have Organization 26, which is decent. They have 36 armor, which is pretty good. Obviously, Germany is going to need to start building some anti-tank to begin countering that. Soft attack 357. I think if I were them, the only change I would make is make these SPGs or motorized artillery. But otherwise, that's a solid template. They have recon, engineers, support artillery, and radio. Yeah, those are good units. I would certainly be scared if I was playing as Germany right now. And we can also take a look and see if they have any modifiers, and they do. Like, French armor in this game is crazy. French and German and Austrian, all three of them have really, really good armor, and they've taken breakthrough in reliability, so France is going like all-out offense here. Their medium tanks are going to be killer. And I wouldn't be that surprised to see what doctrine they've taken either. Royal Air Force, sorry. Republican Air Force. Still the RAF. How do you run multiplayer Kaiserreich? It's super unstable. Yeah, it is. I'm not saying anything against that. It's gotten better since release, but it is still unstable. So, Germany did bring in some extra units to help defend, but look how many men they have here. That's a crazy number. But this is a really open province. It's one province can be attacked by 1, 2, 3, 4 different positions. And each one of those positions does add an attack bonus from the surround. So I think that they are going to be really, really, really strong. Oh, I think France might be going after the Netherlands soon. Meanwhile, do we have any other actions? In the Middle East, we do. So we have Russia. Egypt just capitulated to who? This is going to be a joint peace deal. Reichspakt versus Co-Prosperity. They're both at the table. This is Bulgaria. Bulgaria did do the bulk of the fighting because they joined the quickest. And they're now going to try and do a surround. So it looks like Persia's going to Russia, which is bad news for India. I think I would have tried to take this at the very least. Like this coast. This border, rather. Because this is all horrible terrain to fight through. Like, the whole of Persia is horrible terrain to fight through. And then we have France taking Tripoli, Djibouti. So France looking to take more of North Africa to increase their industry and their manpower reserves. Taking the whole of Libya there. They haven't taken, like, fully secured Suez yet. They just took the Levant for Bulgaria to be added to the Ottoman stuff, or probably just split out into, like, Israel. Because Bulgaria does like their puppets. They've got Serbia, Greece, Romania, and the Ottomans as puppets right now. Bulgaria is getting another turn. Like, the Co-Prosperity don't get a turn until Russia, which is actually next. Once Kingdom of France has got their next turn, it will be Russia again. And then we shall see what they're going to take. This is actually a really important peace deal. There's a lot of land up for grabs here. Kind of wish I'd started looking at this earlier. So Bulgaria took out most of northern Egypt. So Suez is now very firmly in Reichspakt control. It's Bulgaria again. When's Russia getting a go? And it's France again. What? If Belgium has capitulated, what's the point of holding those two tiles when Germany get better defense on core territory? Depends if they have any core territory defense buffs. Also, those two provinces in Belgium are forest, and forests are actually pretty good at defending, especially against tanks. Tanks are worse in forests than they are in mountains. And considering what their main threat is, which is those French medium tanks, holding the forest is actually a pretty good move. And it's Bulgaria again. What the hell? And then France again. Multiplayer Kaiserreich Bulgaria does often take a lot of the Middle East. That's why there is a Bulgaria player, because they are in a position to take all of that. And the Middle East has loads of chromium, so you'll very frequently see heavy tank Bulgaria. I think we saw heavy tank Bulgaria in both of the previous sessions last year. The final and also the preliminary. Especially in forest across a river. Yeah, exactly. Come on, France. This is going to be a big boon to France. I actually wonder if maybe they should have given Egypt to the French. Wait, France is Entente. Oh, never mind. This is two different factions. I wasn't even considering that. Okay, so it's not just Bulgaria taking all of the territory. Because Kingdom of France is also taking a chunk, so this was basically them trying to block them from taking Egypt. Yeah, okay, fine. I was being silly there. I was thinking that France was on Bulgaria's side. They're not. So there's actually three different factions here. So Co-Prosperity is represented basically by the Russians, the Germans represented by Bulgarians, and then the Entente represented by the Kingdom of France. Duh. Yeah, it does look like there's a discussion about the peace deal. And for some reason, Germany has a load of points, but I'm guessing what's happening is every time it's Germany's turn, they're just giving their point share to Bulgaria, which is why Bulgaria gets so many turns. I remember some rules about what you can take in a peace deal and whatnot. Maybe they're arguing about that or even making deals of some kind. I would think that deals are being brokered. Most likely with Russia. Although it's in absolutely nobody's interest to give more stuff to Russia. The problem is the Co-Prosperity sphere is just in such a good negotiating position. Because they're so strong and they still haven't declared in the war. They could join either side. Or neither. They could just go after the Entente. Which actually is not a bad idea. Because Alaska is pretty close to Russia. As has been established a couple of times by Tea Party Lady. And from that, they could potentially launch an invasion of the USA and Canada. Especially because Hawaii is Japanese in this. Did Bulgaria occupy Egypt? Yes, they've taken northern Egypt. Oh, they're giving this to Middle Africa. Interesting. I saw that pop up there a few times, although this is still France. Oh, they took Somalia. Interesting. That's actually a good move. And also the south of Saudi Arabia. Oil. Loads of oil. They've just denied the Reichspakt the oil from this. So taking Libya so aggressively basically forced Bulgaria to then take Egypt to stop them threatening Suez, which then allowed France to go and take the oil in the Middle East and also Somalia. And Somalia is relatively well developed. From what I remember, there are factories down there, which France really needs, and manpower. Who do I think will win this? Right now my money is on the Co-Prosperity. They're in just such a strong position. Like a fully formed China and a fully formed Russia. That's scary. Like what really needed to happen here is Reichspakt goes up against Co-Prosperity and hopefully take down Russia. While the Third Internationale probably goes after the Entente for the Americas. Unfortunately, what's happened is Entente and, Co-Prosperity... Internationale and Reichspakt are fighting, and the Entente and Co-Prosperity are still undeclared.